Welcome back to the camp prior to Malvern Hill. So we have two lieutenant generals now. So with the first one, we are going to take the cover perk, and with the second one, we are going to take the experience perk. Uh, I will probably, once I get a third lieutenant general, I will probably go with the morale perk, so I can stack all three of them. I put my next 2 points in medicine as I'm anticipating to take a lot of casualties this battle. And I'm buying up the sniper weapons and the limited access artillery. Napoleons and 3-inch are perfectly fieldable, but I don't necessarily need to buy more of those. And I also bought up all of the officers capable of granting a unit a star. I might go back and buy a few more as I go through, but I need to expand my army slightly, so I'm definitely going to get those higher level officers in there. Also going to spend the rep points on all of the rifles. If you're feeling okay with the rifles, you may want to consider holding off on one of those as for the same number of rep points, you can get more rifles. Or actually, it's for more rep points, you can get more rifles after second bull run, but if you buy both sets, you won't have enough going into into second bull run. So if you're feeling all right on weapons, you don't need to take both of those. But I definitely wanted to get all the rifles I had for this battle, so I decided to go with it. There are guides available on Steam that do show you what all the rep buys are. So if you want to plan those out ahead of time, those are very useful. In terms of setting stuff up, I'm going with my standard $5,000 worth of veterans, and then filling out with rookies. With my 2 and 3 star units are going to be a little bit smaller, just because I don't want to. I'm going to try and keep them from taking too much damage, like I have in the past couple of battles, and then we'll just keep growing them, 50 to 100 men at a time until we can get them to a little more reasonable size. They're probably never going to grow too large, but we'll see what happens. And so Bayard's rifle is actually going to be able to go up to 2-star, and so I'll have a 1,200 man 2-star unit. So he'll probably bleed down a little bit, but he's in a little bit better shape, and that's sort of how I want to start progressing stuff later on. A couple of these units are definitely pretty beat up. They took a lot of damage at Gaines Mill, so we're losing a lot of stats in doing this, but we definitely need the men. So it's worth the trade-off, just in terms of having greater staying power compared to greater initial hitting power, just because in some ways we're going to be facing all 3 stars again, so we're just so outclassed in terms of pure stats that having 6 or 10 more here or there isn't going to matter as much as having another couple hundred men to add damage and just be able to soak more damage. Especially in terms of we'd do all right if with smaller units if we could be sure we were going to stay out of melee, but with the recent charge changes, that's just not reliable. So you really need to have a decent unit size on legendary, or you're going to get into melee and just get absolutely destroyed if you lose it. So in general, I'm trying to put the Lorenzes on my best units, and then I'm going to run out and we're going to switch over to the 1861s. I'm fine with keeping using the other rifle types, but I'm starting to run out of them and I don't have enough to field units of the size that I really want to. I'm not entirely sure how I want to proceed in the future with more 2-star units. I do kind of like the current mixture where I have the all accuracy, the accuracy plus speed, and the accuracy plus melee. I think the problem with the accuracy plus melee is that really needs to be on either bigger units or units that I've used in melee a bit more. So I may try and build those up a little bit more. I'm not really sure. In the past, it's been so consistently easy to mostly prevent charges that I just don't melee at all. and that doesn't seem to be anywhere near as normal an option in the current version of the mod, which actually I think I like. It's makes the AI a little more threatening, and it's not like the AI is supercharged crazy. It just, if you spend long enough there, they'll eventually do it, and you actually have to deal with it as opposed to just backing up a little bit and they'll stop and then you ignore them. So for my newer units that have only been in a couple of battles, I'm putting them up to 1500, anticipating that I'm going to need to try and hold the initial defensive line. I will end up actually going with a rather different strategy once I actually try Malvern Hill a couple times and realize that with my current campaign setup, holding that front line is just not really. It's not that it can't be done, but I don't think it can be done with reasonable casualties. So I'm going to end up falling back further to get into a better defensive position. And I'll talk about that more in the actual battle. In terms of my artillery, I have moved a couple of, I'm trying to, it's not really quite the add, 5,000 worth of veterans, but I'm trying to get some of my units slightly larger, so I'm adding a gun here or there. I haven't really settled on what I'm going to use as my final size, so I'm just sort of winging it at this point. But so we've almost got the first corps filled out. And unfortunately, we're starting to run out of the Harper's Ferry 1841s. They're actually pretty decent, though 61s are better if we have them. I'm not sure if we'll really capture any more of them. Like that's one of the issues that you run into on Legendary, is especially when you know with the double training event, is their rifles go up so fast that in some ways it'd actually be nice to capture some larger quantities of some of the lower tier stuff, just so you have it available for newer units. Like these units are, an 1861 is probably, a little generous on a unit that I'm expecting to take a lot of losses, but I just don't have anything else to put into the field. This isn't quite a Shiloh situation where, I want to have every single gun I can on the field, but it's surprisingly actually not far off. Maybe it's just bad RNG luck, or maybe I just haven't figured out how to play it, this version of the mod better. But the battles have been consistently more difficult so far than what I remember from the last time I played the Union campaign, which is a nice change of pace. So we're going to be able to bring in 20 units in the first corps and 19 in the second. The deploy numbers aren't going to be entirely accurate for the mod, but at least if you bring 18 and 18, you'll get 18 and 18. But there are a few extra slots you can use if you want to. With the cavalry, it's doing the same thing, trying to get them back up to like 400 or so. I probably could have switched them back over to Palmettos or some other. We actually do want to try and upgrade their melee weapons if we can, just because the Palmettos only have 70 melee, which is really not great. That came about because there used to be some really silly stuff that you could do in terms of, I think we used to have Palmettos with something like 90 or 100 melee damage, and the dual cavalry start for the Union was absolutely insane. Though that was also back when you could split up your 2-star unit and have two 450 man 2-star cavalry units at distress call. That was kind of good. But so I'm going to try and get those 2-star units back up to around 400. You can see Porter's a little behind the curve there. We're putting another sniper unit together. He's going to be pretty small, but we'll get more guns and we'll up him the next time. There's a couple of spots in this battle where it's kind of hard to get skirmishers firing at targets in cover, so the extra range on him will be useful. Going back to the cavalry a little bit, like I said, I still am using them both as dragoons, which they're not particularly good at. I guess if I was going to, what would actually be better for using the dragoons is if I had them set up with my avatar as a general, because he has the double He has the double accuracy global perks, and that would help the Dragoons with all their shock perks do a little bit more damage and get their efficiency up. But the Avatar doesn't have the Lieutenant General aura yet, so sticking with the two generals I have, even though their perks really aren't necessarily optimal for this specific battle. But I'm going to try and get them just shooting at something in cover for a little while, and then hopefully we'll switch them back over into melee cavalry after this point. So I've mostly got everything set up. I got to go back through and figure out all the officers. All right, the Zouave unit. I decided to try out the Cold RR. It doesn't have the greatest accuracy. It's only 400 range, but it hits really hard. It reloads pretty slow, but it's a weapon I've been looking at for a while. Like this might be good enough to put on a unit and make use of it. It definitely, because it's only range 400, you got to be really careful with the unit. But we do have basically like that unit's running around with plus 100% cover, so it should be pretty safe no matter where it gets hit. And those guns aren't super expensive, so I wanted to try using them and see if, even with the slower firing speed, they would end up hitting harder than if I had just sent that unit out there with, a good infantry weapon. So we'll see how that experiment works. I wanted to give it a try. May not be the best plan. Definitely not necessary. Could save a bunch of money by not buying those. But going through, doing all the officer shenanigans that we always have to do. Just trying to free up as many of the high-level colonels as I can to make more units, and also putting to do that, I'm also pulling out the mid-range colonels so that I can replace higher level colonels on more experienced units. And this 20-pounder, I can actually get up to a 2-star. I just got to get a better officer in there. So we're going to get him upgraded. And one thing I didn't think about, but I eventually realized before I actually play the battle, is since I have access to 15 20-pounders now, I can actually, my original 3-inch unit, I can swap out the 3-inch guns, put 20-pounders in, and then give the Truex's unit the 3-inch and still have it keep going. In some ways, it would be better to have the 20-pounder will do way better than the 3-inch. So in some ways, it'd be better to have the better guns on the unit that wants to gain more XP. But this battle is hard enough, and there's enough artillery that I wanted to have as good a long-ranged cannon as I could get. So we ended up going with. I don't end up showing it in this video that I ended up making several tweaks to the camp process as I was trying to figure out how to really get through this battle better. Alright, so looks like we got through the first core. We are going to have to end up rearranging the units to hit the 2019 setup. So we're going to pull 4 units over from the first core, and then we'll be good to go. Still keeping my Major General on a unit I'm hoping is going to get a lot of kills. From what I remember, I don't think he gets quite as much as I really want. Really want to get him. I'm probably going to stick him, if I can afford it, in some of the side battles. If I can get away with one where I don't need the aura, I might try and put him in Core Command, just to get him that 3rd perk. Because having a double accuracy general will be really useful for second bull run, where it's going to be very artillery focused. So for the 2 units that I'm going to create now, I'm going to try and start putting together some melee units. So these are going to be around 2,000 man units armed with muskets. Their main goal is going to be to stand behind my line and countercharge stuff. And then if the unit in front of them breaks or needs a break, then I'll send them forward. Hopefully, I'll have enemy units in range that they can actually fire back and gain XP that way. And we're going to try and we'll see how it goes. I'm not the best melee unit player, but I definitely think I'm going to want some of these. and hopefully they'll save some casualties for my, I guess, units with better rifles. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do in terms of weapons for them long term. I guess I'm either going to have to buy muskets, or I'm going to have to buy like the Harper's Ferries 55s or something like that that do come with a higher melee value, because you really want a melee value around 80 or so at least. You don't want to be using the like 60, 65 that the better rifles have. So we'll have to look at our finances and see what the option there is. I'm kind of My initial impression is probably going to be muskets up until the point that I can afford to get econ a little higher and drop the price on those weapons a little bit more. Or maybe if we get lucky and we start capturing those sort of weapons from the enemy, then we can equip things that way. That would always be the preferable option. So, still continuing to play the officer adjustment game. Swapping out. So I'm decided to put brigadier generals in control of the divisions to try and gain some more XP there, and also to increase the command bar for everything else, so I can drop lower level officers into a couple of units. One thing that I've run into is that there seems to be sort of an issue where high level colonels gain very low XP in division command, but then once they get to brigadier general, they start gaining XP faster again. The details behind why that's happening would probably take me 20 minutes to explain, but suffice to say, we need to do some tweaking around there because that doesn't work particularly well. But if you're trying to rush your high-level colonels to the next rank, put them in charge of rookies. Don't leave them in division command. It won't go particularly quickly. You'll be gaining like 1 XP per side battle and 3 XP per grand battle, which is not great. Though depending on what units you have to throw them on, that might be better than. I think I have a high-level colonel in charge of my 3-star unit, and it's going to gain. I think he gains like 1 or 2 XP for the entire battle of Malvern Hill. All right, so that's pretty much everything except for moving units around, and then I'm going to end up making a bunch of changes, but I will go over those in the actual battle video. So I will be back with that soon. Thanks for watching.